Good morning, everybody. How we doing today? Other than cold, I know.
It's
I
freezing
know.
outside.
Well, welcome to Curtis Hall. My name is Bill Salvatore, Director of Parks and Rec here in Cheltenham Township. We're really proud of our Cheltenham 250 series that continues today with the February idea of celebrating parks history. And one of the things that I learned pretty quickly in the township, other than what we've been preaching around architecture, history, and green spaces, is that the history that exists within our public spaces, a lot of people don't know about. And I learned this over the summer with my full staff, the high school kids and college kids that work for me. We did a little quiz about park space in the township, and they didn't know too much about it. So I brought it back to our newly formed Park Friends Network, which is about a year old now. Many of them are in the audience. You'll hear from some today and then others on the 21st. And we had this idea as part of this year-long celebration. Let's talk about park history. Right? So here's the format. I'm going to talk briefly about every green space in the township, light history. If you know deeper history, if you want to share more, please reach out to the Parks and Rec email address and let us know. A lot of this has been pulled from our website, which Lauren Walter, our PIO, who's here today, does such a great job with. And we will update it as much as we need to. Right? And then maybe sometime in the future, we can do a history of the parks book with the help of Tom. But that's that. Then we'll get into parks that connect to the Gilded Age. Today, we're going to talk about Curtis, where we're at. And Donna from the Friends of Curtis will handle that. And then we'll talk about Robinson Park, which Alex from the Friends of Robinson Park. So just other acknowledgments real quick. We do have a couple commissioners in the House. So Commissioner Emily Stein and Commissioner Jeff Cherico. And then former Commissioner Ann Rappaport, who she hates when I do this, but she had a big hand in what's going on today and on the 21st. Including our first slide. And I will not read this all to you because that's the worst thing to do. But, we thought it was really important before we talked about the parks in the township. What are the benefits of parks, right? And you could cheat and raise your hand and read something off the screen. But number one, we think about wellness, right? Whether it's physical wellness or mental wellness, mental health. You get out into the park every day and you get that fresh air and you walk through. It really helps to regulate you and keep you set. And we think that's a great deal. Stress reduction is huge. I had a friend who was really going through it the other day, and she said, I don't know if I can do this anymore. I said, do yourself a favor. Go out the front door, walk through the park, and walk back in the back door with you, and you'll feel a lot better. And sure enough, later today, she texted me, you know what, that's what I needed. Just need to get outside. Look, I know it's cold, right? I know there's not a whole lot of green out there, but so that fresh air works wonders for sure. In Parks and Rec, this is huge. Community building and well-being. Look, we've done a great job over the last year and a half of building community within this township, something that, may not have been terribly connected in the past. I got here and I heard a lot about this East-West divide. And in Parks and Rec, we're doing everything we can to bring people together, right? We have a whole Cheltenham 250 series. We are doing concerts in the park in every corner of this township. We're doing special events. You all know about the pools and other programs we're doing. So the more connective tissue across this township, the more that we love it. This is a big one. Environmental awareness and stewardship, right? You get on a public works call, a public affairs call, you're going to hear something about green space, right? What's being built, what's not happening, what's going on with the sewer system, what's going on with the water, all that stuff. You look in the news and it's popping up, right? And it's really big and it's really important here in Cheltenham through the EAC, the Shade Tree, and our new Active Transport Committee. You're going to hear a lot more of this coming along, as well as some other things we have coming down the pipeline through Parks and Rec. And environmentally, economic and community value. People want to live near parks, right? If you come to live in Cheltenham, there's a lot of great things about it. But the green spaces, to me, are number one on the list, right? I live in Roxborough. I taught at Manor College for a little bit, and I drove through here pretty much 2-3 times a week, right? And I was always drive by and like, look at that park, oh, look at that park, look at that park, right? Not knowing anything about it, so I got out here and I started working. And the township is truly blessed. And through the history that you're going to learn about today, on the 21st, you'll see some of it. The land that was donated, that was acquired, to make sure that we take care of our public spaces. And this is a tale as old as the country, right? When Philadelphia was founded, we had 5 squares, civic commons where people would come together, they would gather, and they would celebrate music, drink, camaraderie. And that's what these public spaces are about. And that's what we want to celebrate through this exercise today and on the 21st. And grass is always happy to see you. So I mentioned I taught for a little bit. I do have a degree in biology. And the nerd in me wants to tell you that these are vascular bundles within a little blade of grass that want to carry the nutrients in the water, to make sure that the grass gets what it needs. But it's kind of cute that when you see it, there's a little smile as part of it, which I think is really nice. All right, so here's our park system. We have over 20 parks, and I use the term over 20 because sometimes you group parks together, sometimes you don't. And, on the 21st, John Race will do a deep dive into everything related to the Tookenny. But when you go down there, you can count Gimbal and the Fire Field and Veterans Field as separate. You can count them together, right? That's why we use this loosely over 20. But we have 400 acres of green space, which is about 7% of the township's landmass that, Bob Dominic, if you know Bob Dominic and his team from Parks Maintenance, they have to maintain it. And you talk about small but mighty. I mean, I think that group is maybe 6 workers deep, and they manage this as best they can, and they work closely with the friends groups and make it all happen, right? And in this, we have ball fields. You all know that, right? You see kids playing soccer, playing baseball, and playing softball. We have active and passive parks. Sometimes it's just somewhere to go read a book, right? Walk your dog, or do something active like run on a trail. And there's bird sanctuaries. Anybody know that there's 2 bird sanctuaries in the township? You do now. And we'll talk about that a little bit, and then maybe in the future we can do some bird lectures as part of this. So the idea here is my quick tour through the township will go roughly west to east. Not exactly, but we'll get as close as we can. So we'll start in what would that be, the northwest part of the township. H. Carroll Brook Park. It's in Glenside. Anybody been there? Raise your hand. A handful of people, all right? One of the great things that I learned in our visit of green spaces in the township is how little we know, right? Even when I drove around with my team. By the way, they're in the back, Kelly, Josh, and Sylvester. When we drove around and we checked it all out, it was like, how come these aren't activated more, right? And that's where the whole idea of rotating concerts came from. But this is up in Glenside. It was acquired in 1936. And much like a lot of these parks, you'll learn that they were named after former commissioners or folks who donated the land. So this was after Board Commissioner H. Carroll Brook. And there's some stuff there. You can go play around with a playground, a basketball court, a parking lot. I try and push it to folks that want to use field space in Glenside. It feels like it's a little bit off the beaten path because of where it sits in the township, but one of those, what I would call stranded assets, don't get enough use. So make sure you check it out if you're on that side of town. We move into Grove Park. Are the Friends of Grove Park here? Okay, so we have a Friends group of Grove Park. That's pretty much a passive park that this Friends group is really activating lately, right? It was part of an estate of a gentleman named George Heist, and a lot of just open space there. And what you'll notice, a lot of our green spaces that were preserved are around water, right? So there's a little stream that runs through Grove Park as well. And the Friends group has done a really good job activating it. Let's see here. They have this whole litany of things that's going on, but they started in 2005, and with the help of Commissioner Harriman, they really started activating it. They do a spring picnic every year. Our Monarch Festival has been held there the last 2 years, and they do a great job with that. It's a lot of good stuff going on in Grove Park, and we like it so much that we activated it. When we went to the Monarch Festival last year, the one thing that we noticed in Parks and Rec is that there was a lot of kids running around that were under 8 years old. So Coach Sylvester back there, who works for me, he ran a U8 soccer program, and we had about 15 kids come out once a week just to kick a ball around in Grove Park. Now, it's not meant to be a soccer field, and it's not meant to be, for competitive play, but it's an open green space we get kids out to, and it's in their neighborhood, right? And the other great thing about these green spaces in Cheltenham is there's a green space probably walking distance to everybody that you can get out, and whether it's kick a ball with your kid or walk a dog or just, read a book or take a stroll, you can do it. Renninger Recreation Area, that's next to Glenside Pool. So this is a bit of an interesting study in that the pool that's at the Renninger Recreation Area used to be back where the basketball courts are now. They got moved somewhere in the 1960s, 1967 to be precise. And the way we look at this is as a campus, right? We have a community space indoors at the Glenside Hall. We have a pool next to it. We have ball fields. We have a basketball court. And then we have two playgrounds, right? There's a Renninger playground behind the hall, and then there's a little playground next to the pool. So when you come over to that little campus, you can think about almost anything, right? And the folks from Glenside Youth Athletics, they do a great job maintaining that field for us, as well as Bob and his team. But really, really nice, and really nice to think about what that could be in the future, right? As we think about capital planning and things along those lines. Thomas Williams, you'll hear a lot about Thomas Williams on February 21st, I should say. That is where a school used to be. And you'll hear all about that school, and Olga and her team from the Friends of Thomas Williams will cover that fully in park history too. But again, one of those really active parks. If you go there on a Saturday or Sunday in the fall or in the spring, chances are that field is covered with kids playing soccer. Right. What's really nice about it is the other things that are there. You got a little bit of a basketball court. You got some swings. There's a pavilion that you can picnic at. Really exciting news if you weren't paying attention on Wednesday night at the Public Works meeting. There's a concrete slab there that hasn't been touched in 20, 30 years. And it's going to be converted to what's called a traffic garden. It'll be paved over and it'll be painted with streets and trails and signage that teaches kids traffic safety. Really cool concept. And we thank our friends at the county for helping us with that. Ralph Morgan Park, that's kind of north central-ish. It's near Jenkintown train station. Fun fact about this, our senior program, our senior walking group really loves this park. They love walking through it. It's a nice walking trail there. It used to be called Winco Park, and it was renamed after our commissioner. Surprise, surprise. So keep up the good work, Jeff, Emily, and Ann, thank you. Maybe someday. There's a nice basketball court there. There's a walking path, a playground, some open space. There was a request for a concert there this year, and we couldn't squeeze it in this year, but we will definitely get it next year for sure. Curves Arboretum, where you're at today. I mean, could it be a more beautiful space, honestly? And Donna and her team, they're great stewards of, you know, everything that goes on here, whether it's tree plantings or maintaining the buffer or just, you know, keeping the peace with the dog park, whatever the case may be. They do a great job. And you'll hear all about that in about 15 minutes or so. Robinson Park, you'll hear from Robinson as well today. That is along Greenwood Ave at North Bent Road. You'll know it by that wonderful gazebo in the pond. Matter of fact, Robinson is on the coin for February. So we thank you for that. What a great picture, and it really encapsulates everything that makes our parks great. And Alex will be up here shortly to talk about that. John Russell Park, talk about a stranded asset. John Russell Park suffers from being on the border of Cheltenham Avenue and the border of the city. Right? It is extremely difficult to get groups to permit the space. Right? We have the shopping center right next to it with the parking lot, and we have a little bit of an easement where we can use some of that parking, but it's just not an ideal location. And this was, at one time, a vast tract of space that was owned by a guy named John Russell. And he owned the space from basically Penrose Ave all the way up to Serpentine. So it encompasses about 300 acres. And now it just kind of sits there, right? We have a group going to use it in the spring for some youth soccer, which will be nice. And I've brainstormed with Commissioner Rappaport and others what we can do with it. You know, do we make it into a disc golf course? Do we put a walking trail? What does it look like in the long term? So, you know, as you're listening to everyone talk today and on the 21st, if you have ideas for how to activate or reclaim some of these public spaces for better use, please reach out and let us know. We are game for everything. If you didn't learn, we don't mess around, right? We are here today. Emails all night, texts all morning. Yeah, are we still going today? Absolutely. Parks and Rec don't quit, and come to us and we'll make it happen for sure. Rock Lane Park. This is another really interesting one. We get a little applause from the back. So this is a state-acquired space within the township, and I just learned literally 2 days ago, or maybe yesterday, in a meeting, that what I thought was Rock Lane Park is only half of Rock Lane Park. A part of this park you would think is Rock Lane Park stretches to the trail that you would know across the back driveway from Linwood Hall, right? And I think through the comprehensive plan and through talking to the county, we learned that that's a separate parcel, right? So, I don't know, Rappaport Park maybe? Someday, who knows, but we'll work on that. But I encourage you to check it out. It is a beautiful open space, and as we talk about natural lands and maintaining natural lands, this is something we should really look at. Wall Park, taking the Arboretum out of it, Wall Park may be the mecca of all parks within the township, right? It is gigantic, and it's got everything you can ask for, right? It was purchased in 2 phases. You can see the dates there. It was part of the Wall estate. The Wall House is there, and we'll learn all about the Wall House in October at their event. What's fascinating about this park is the once upon a playground, the wooden playground that was built by the Friends group that existed however many years ago. And I know it because many of my colleagues, when I worked in the city, would bring their kids to that park during COVID, right? And, during the pandemic, it was more important than ever to get outside and, safely distance yourself, but get outside and enjoy the fresh air and, not be cooped up indoors for, your physical and mental health, amongst other things. So one of the things I really like about this is, I don't know how much it's going to cost, right? And we can think about, capital improvements and going for grants and all this stuff, but that wooden playground can truly be a destination playground. You think about the castle in Bucks County, it's a destination, right? I forget the name of it. There's a park right below the bridge in New York. It's a destination playground. People travel to go there. When they come to an area, like, oh, I got to bring my kids to this playground, right? Heck, I was in Cleveland for WrestleMania of all things, and we went to a local playground to check it out so the kids can run around. It's pretty neat. And on top of that, there's all those other amenities. You get the giant soccer field there, right? You got the spray ground, the only spray ground in the township. And we have the pickleball courts, which are very well loved and very well used, and they will be rehabbed this spring, which is super exciting. A lot of parking down there, a lot of open space. We try and do events there because of the parking, because of the bathroom access. It makes things a little bit easier. Moving further east, we get to Ogons, Church and High School Road. You'll know it by the walking track, right? A lot of open space there. There are hidden tennis courts behind the playground, right? And we talked about how, we have these parks along water. So there's the creek that runs through there. You can go over this little bridge. I think you can see the bridge there. And it takes you back to here, right? And we can convert those to pickleball courts anytime we want. We have portable nets, or you can play tennis there. And there's actually, you probably can't see it in this picture, there's actually a wooden board that sits on the tennis courts, and you can practice if you're there by yourself. And a lot of folks just go and they'll serve to the board so it comes back to them. I see some head shaking in the audience there, so they love it. Right? Again, one of those hidden things you may not know. And this playground got a lot of attention over the last year because a storm in March of 25 dropped a tree through the swings. And look, I work for government. Procurement's a thing, right? I took calls weekly about one of those swings going back up, right? And I'm here to tell you, it is no delay on Parks and Rec, no delay on Bob Lodnick, no delay on the township. It is, you got to order swings from Canada. You got to get them fabricated and get them shipped down here and then installed. So happily, by the summer, we got them installed, but it wasn't for lack of trying. So when you see things out of service, please bring it to our attention, but know that it may take a little bit of time till we can get things through the process. High School Park, you'll hear all about High School Park. Doug's here today. Oh, hey, and you'll hear all about High School Park and the connection to the old high school back when we go on the 21st. But the Friends Group's been around, what, Doug, 35 years? 30 years, right? And, you know, kind of the model, I would say, that the other Friends Groups are kind of following after as far as advocating and stewarding the space and activating the space. And High School Park does a great job with their summer concert series and Arts in the Park and everything else. And they've been really good partners to us as we start doing things like our lit trail through the park, and we do our concert there and things like that. So you learn all about that at the end of the month. We get to Melrose, another one that's kind of off the beaten path. Anybody been to Melrose Park? A couple people, okay. So again, picnic pavilion, you can use it. There's a playground there. We are installing new signage there, so you'll know exactly where Melrose Park is. Those beautiful blue signs that we're putting up. Phase 2 will happen this year. You know, ball field. This is one of the parks that we get called about because folks are on there using the field without a permit, right? And I think we discovered, and this is not uncommon, we discovered a group of, I don't know if it was from the Jamaican community or from the Haitian community. They were playing pickup soccer games on Sunday mornings there, which is fine, right? You know, little history of Director Salvatore. You know, when I was in the city, I ran this thing called the Unity Cup. It was an immigrant-based soccer tournament. And one of the things that we learned is that if you don't provide recreation opportunities for everyone, they will create their own recreation, right? So if you're not actively engaging immigrant populations, then they will do it without you. And that's what we learned through that event. And it stands true here, right? So Kelly put me in contact with the permit holder, and we'll see if we get something legitimate going down there, an adult soccer league or something fun like that. Coventry Park, small one. This is one of my favorites. So when I drove by, I'm like, this is really nice. This is a truly passive park. And it sits right at New Second in Coventry. You can see it was acquired in 1956. It is an open space, a natural area. And they have a couple benches there that face the stream or the creek or whatever the body of water is that goes through it. And I could just imagine folks just sitting there and, you know, vibing out, reading a book, doing whatever. See a lot of dog walkers through there. It's one of those, again, I overuse the term hidden gems, but it really is, right? Like, would you even think about going to Coventry Park? Honestly? Yeah. Now you will, right? But without that signage, you just would think it's just, you know, open space. And now you know a little bit more about it, right? We get to the northeast, we get to Conklin. Conklin is pretty big when you think about the whole area. You know, we mostly think about the pool, but if you look beyond where they did the stormwater work, there is a ton of space on the other side of the pool. There's a basketball court back there. There's some areas to picnic. There's a lot of open space. There's a play area. There's a lot that you can do back there. We don't know the future of Conklin, right? That's TBD as part of this whole facilities discussion, but I know it's beloved, and I know that, you know, there's a lot of green space that we can do a lot with there if, you know, we need to. Parkview Park, again, another one that you probably haven't heard much about. There is that lovely brown and yellow sign that we're replacing across the township. You can see it right on the corner of Parkview in the Cheltenham part of the section. It was purchased in 1950 to conserve open space, and that's all it is right now. It's just open space. It's a natural area. But good news, once again, if you pay attention, there will be a master plan coming up for Parkview Park. So if you're in the area, if you live near there, look for some engagement opportunities coming up so you can see what that park can look like in the future. And then we get to the Tokenie. And the Tokenie is gigantic. We all know that. And there's so much to it. There's Gimbal Field, where you play baseball and softball, right? There's a connecting trail now. Gimbal Field will be where the Battle of the Bruise is as part of America, or Cheltenham Celebrates America 250 in August with a Sam Stinson country concert, which will be really fun. Then we have the Gottschalk Field. We call that the fire field, right? Because it's right near the fire training grounds. Kleinheinz Pond, again, one of those wonderful amenities within the township. Kelly did get a call yesterday. Somebody was trying to skate on Kleinheinz Pond. So we will, put that disclaimer out there, just like the city did. Please, no skating or ice fishing on any body of water in Cheltenham Township. And we thank you for that. But the pond is wonderful. We do the fishing derby there every year, and TTF does some learn to fish, which is wonderful. And we're looking to activate it more. We tried to do a concert there last year. The weather didn't cooperate, so we'll get back there at some point. And it'll get refreshed with some new signage this year, which is awesome. And then you all know Veterans. It's down towards the end of the Parkway, and kind of across the street from where the shuttle shop is. Really active for the Cheltenham sports. There's a playground there. We get calls about that basketball court all the time. It needs a new net, needs a new rim. So really beloved space down that end of the township. And, the east side often says that they're underserved, but this is one of the things that really pours into what goes on the east side of town. All right. And then I think this is my last one. Desert Storm Park has the dubious distinction of the smallest park in the township. Has anybody other than Kelly been to Desert Storm Park? Yes, we have a few Desert Storm Park going. It was acquired in 1995. It does sit on the east side. Kelly, is that technically the village?
I mean, there was so little parking in Cheltenham Hill. I had to leave my car at the meeting, which is like behind where the old rollers used to be, that municipal parking lot.
Some nature on the east side of town. Good there.
Where the trolley is.
And
behind the trolley.
I won't talk too much about
walk over to Gilliam's,
where they're at, where they came from. So the Pearly Bird Sanctuary, both of these were named after
rainstorm to wear one of the butterfly
this is at Glenside Avenue, Rice Mill Road. This will get a refresh sign so you'll know exactly where it's at. It was gifted by what is now SBS. Back then it was called the Standard Press in 1956. And we did a little nature club when I first got here, and we walked the kids through there. It's a nice little walking trail, and it actually pops out near a residence, so you kind of have to walk back to wherever you park. But it's really nice to get a chance to check it out for sure.
I don't know, you made it twice.
Sanctuary. That's Cheltenham Hills Drive. And they just know it as a wide open
when that storm happens
as you drive down Cheltenham Hills, right? But if you're at the corner of Cheltenham Hills and Church Road, you look on that corner, you will see one of those wonderful brown and yellow signs that will be replaced this year. And it calls us out, right? So that bird sanctuary actually starts there. There's a head of a trail there, and it goes all the way through, goes under a bridge, and it comes out to that wide open space. And my team and I, we walked it. It's really nice, and it follows a little bit of water there. And we think about how that connects to the rest of the township as we go through the active transportation process. So that's it for me. That was a quick tour of everything we have.
I'm going to talk about the Gilded Age, which of course is a small slice from the Lenny Lenape stewardship all the way through to today. I want to mention a little bit about what we're doing today in the park. It's 48 acres. It goes all the way down to Washington Avenue. Not everybody knows that, Washington Lane. One of the things we did this year is we got 8 new benches donated and installed. And so there are benches that overlook Rock Creek and the big rock. There's a giant rock that I think Rock Creek is named after. And so explore that area. The Friends group has done a lot in that area to, raise your hand if you're in the Friends group. Yeah, Phyllis is there every Tuesday morning. Koa has been there to get vines off trees and to make the trees healthier. This park was donated in the last century. And as Bill said, they have a limited number of people who mow all of these parks. And so what the Friends group tries to do is restore the riparian buffer, that make forests next to the streams, have benches so that people can enjoy the park. The benches were little like planks before. I don't know if everybody knows this park well, but it was like you went to Home Depot when you bought a plank of lumber this wide, and that was our benches. And we still have some of those, so we have room to work on that. In 2025, we also started the geology walk. We had more than 1,800 volunteer hours. Thank you, all the volunteers at events like this, and planting trees. We have planted more than 600 trees since 2018 and more than 1,000 bushes. So if you were to walk down by Rock Creek, which you can't see from here, that used to be all vines and what biologists call a monoculture, just not healthy ecosystem. And now it is going to be canopy trees. We saved the canopy trees that are there, and in between the canopy trees, bushes. And this year we've started with wildflowers and grasses. So it'll be a whole ecosystem. My birder friends have already told me that they are seeing more migratory birds stop and get a meal on their long journeys. So we're doing all sorts of things. We'd love you to join us. You can sign up for email back there or on our website, parksfriends.net. But history, Gilded Age history in particular. Promise me this was working.
Yeah. Probably because, try it now.
Okay. And we have some interesting things back there, including why the historical marker is wrong. If anybody, we have a couple of people who are interested in history, but we could always use more. If anybody here is a history buff and you want to help us get to know more of the history of this great place, I would love to talk to you afterwards. You'll see I have more questions than knowledge, and I'm going to throw out some of those to you. So, of course, there was Lenny Lenape, and when this land was developed differently, Abraham Barker was the first to have a deed to this land, and he was a banker, and he called his estate Linden with a Y. And it's, you can see Church and Greenwood, and that was the Barker estate and Linden, where he had a house. But the Gilded Age started after Cyrus H.K. Curtis bought the house in 1893. The Barker Bank had failed and he needed to sell it, so he sold the whole thing to Cyrus Curtis. This is what the house looked like. This room you're in today was the music hall, only the music hall. The house was all in that area, and if you are in the front drive, you are where the front door used to be, and if you see the stairs, I believe those are these stairs right here. So the stairs remain. The house was demolished when it was donated to the township so that it didn't need to be maintained. But the music hall, thankfully, is in great shape thanks to Parks and Rec and the township and grants and luck, because as they were restoring it, they realized it was almost going to fall down based on how it was built or was not built correctly. So it's a beautiful space and it's a treasure, and it's I'm so happy to live near it. And it was designed by William Lloyd Bailey, which doesn't mean anything to me, again, because I'm not a history person. But if you know history, maybe that means something to you. We have Trumbauer houses. We have Frank Lloyd Wright House. We have Frank Lloyd Wright Synagogue. We have lots of architecture things. in our township as well. This is the other side of the house, just to see, so you can see the size. And so the house dwarfed this music room. There's the music room. Where are we at? So in terms of the estate, in 1933, Cyrus Curtis died, and his daughter, Mary Louise Curtis Bach, had the house demolished, as I said. She also sold off a bunch of land, that's houses now, and she donated this part of the property, the remaining part of the property, to the township. And so the township has been maintaining it ever since. If you are an architect, a landscape architect, I'm told Frederick Law Olmsted is the guy who is most famous in American landscape architecture. He did Central Park, and his sons did some of the stone features you see throughout this park. As she donated the land, she wanted to donate it as an arboretum, and that was the style, to have a tree zoo and to have interesting things to walk past. And you'll see there's a cascade near a bridge and various things that were built by the Olmsted sons. So we're in the Olmsted archives, again, if you're a history buff. I was wondering about his long middle name and whether he came from Eastern Europe, but it turns out that he had a beloved music teacher, and he took the name of that music teacher. And so I have a quiz for you. According to Wikipedia, if you look at modern value of money, right? Like, he could have been a millionaire, but that doesn't mean as much today. What ranking would Cyrus Curtis get out of all Americans if you look through history? Can anybody make a guess? Was it number one? Make a guess. 15? No? Higher? I meant lower, I guess. Higher number? No, it's greater than 15. 20. Yes, he was the 20th wealthiest man in America, and I believe that list is all men. And this whole area in the Gilded Age was chock full of billionaires, which was one of the wealthiest areas in the country. If everyone came up, if they did business in Philadelphia, they didn't want to stay there during the summer because of yellow fever. So they would come here so they wouldn't get yellow fever, and they get the cool breezes, and the trees leave things up to 20 degrees cooler than some of the hottest parts of the city. And then I was going to ask you, who's Cyrus Curtis's wife? But I advanced a slide. So Louisa Knapp, turns out, in reading between the lines, I'm not a historian, she was the brains of the operation. So Cyrus was up in Portland, Maine. His house burned down in the Great Fire of Portland, Maine, and he had to work as a young person in newspapers, and it wasn't going very well. And so he moved to Philadelphia to try his luck here, and he had a newspaper for farmers, and she started writing a column in it, and then it became a page, and then it became the Ladies' Home Journal, and then it became 1 million people, back when we didn't have very many people, 1 million subscribers to the Ladies' Home Journal. It was the biggest magazine in the country. And this is the lady. She was the editor. She figured it out. She knew what women wanted to read. She did the first women's magazine, still an important industry. And it was in a time of what they call the magazine revolution, where it's like the internet, except magazines. They found a way to make it profitable for people to publish magazines, which made it possible for people to purchase magazines. And it's that advertising model and that the internet runs on, unfortunately, today as well. But so she was the editor. She stayed at the helm for quite some time, and her name is nowhere right now. So we're gonna work on that. We're gonna add her name to the history marker. Her daughter, Mary Louise Curtis Bach, is famous for starting the Curtis Institute of Music. So music was definitely a theme throughout this family, the music hall, Curtis Institute, and she married Ephraim Zimbalist Jr., which is a name from my childhood. Yeah, so there's just all sorts of music and philanthropy tied to Curtis. And now as a plug for our garden party, Bill mentioned community. And one of the great things we friends have been doing, this will be our third year, is we host a garden party, or we organize a garden party. And the caterer who does the fancy weddings here donates food at a discount. And all the neighbors come, and I would love to see you there. It's in this hall. How cool is that? With a fancy caterer. And you just have to wear a flowery dress or whatever your equivalent is to be celebratory and have fun at our garden party. So May 7th from 6 to 9, save the date. Well, there will be tickets online. And if you sign up for our email list, I'll give you, we'll let you know. Okay. Hey. Oh, yeah. Thank you. Thank you, ma'am. Sorry, like I said, we get pants. Y'all hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah, great. Wonderful. How's it going, everybody? Thank you so much for coming out. I'm so thrilled to see so many people that braved the cold. To everyone on Zoom, how's it going? Nice to see you. Hope to see you at Robinson Park at some point. Before I get going, I want to just throw out a couple of thank yous. I specifically want to shout out Bill Salvatore and Kelly Rebitz. I want to shout out Lauren Walters, the communications officer. I want to shout out Sam Brinker. Bob Dominic and his team has already received accolades, but we need to put some major respect on his name. I also want to shout out Commissioner Stein and Chirico, as well as former Commissioner Rappaport. And a special shout out to the late Ann Wickenhaver, who was a very, very good friend of my family's, as well as Barb and the late Janet, as well as Ann's nephew, Bud Tennell, for sharing their family history, archives, and anecdotes that support much of our presentation today. To our knowledge, most of this stuff that we're going to be talking about today has not been presented publicly before. I literally got some of the pictures that are in this presentation about 2 weeks ago, and I saw them for the first time. I grew up in the house just up the hill, and I have not seen these photos. So, sorry, geeking out about history. So, Ben's Terrace and its carriage house were constructed in 1892 and were designed by Horace Trumbauer, one of the most famous Philadelphia architects of the Gilded Age. Although Ben Terrace, or the Bender, as it was fondly referred to by the Robinson family, is nestled amid some of what were the most opulent estates in the area at the time of its construction, it is by no means a mansion, particularly relative to the others around it, and its proportions as a modest country matter are what allowed it to fortunately survive the wrecking ball, as its size made it easier and less costly to maintain. It consists of about 5,000 square feet, which is basically the size of a Toll Brothers McMansion, and it was situated on a 10-acre tract. Now,
when I talk about a modest country mansion, this is relative to Lingwood, which was 110,000 square feet, as well as White Marsh and Stotesbury, which was 100,000 square feet, as well as the other renowned mansions in the age, many of which have subsequently been torn down. While the raw materials utilized reflect the quality of other Gilded Age construction, such as spec sheets that specified the utilization of, quote, the finest lead paint that money can buy, which made remediation very fun for myself and my family. The actual design was very simple. So in studying the blueprints for the house and the carriage house, one will also notice several other features that were further simplified during construction. And if you want to see some of those details for yourself, please stop by our table in the back. We have copies of the blueprints with us, as well as some other really cool archival materials. So this aerial photo shows the layout of Robinson Park as represented by the yellow boundary markers and the surrounding properties of note that we're going to mention today. First, I want to point out the entrances, which are represented by the green ovals. So first, up at the top, we have the entrance on Bent Road through the Bend Terrace driveway. Second, at the middle is on Greenwood Avenue through a break in the wall. And finally, at the bottom is the entrance off of Walt Lane, which is through a chain link fence. The park offers several fantastic amenities that Bill shouted out today, which are marked with orange or arrows and circles. These include the former Rose Garden, which we'll reference later in the presentation, as well as the current community garden, gazing pool, gazebo, and grotto, the Memorial Garden, and the Woodland Grove. Now, Robinson Park itself constitutes a 4.4-acre jewel at the heart of the Wyncote Historic District. The original tract of land, as I said, consisted of 10 acres and acted as a family compound of sorts. It consisted of 7 homes built sequentially. First was Bend Terrace, which was built for Henry Klein, or HK, or Grandpa, as I'm most frequently heard him referred to, Walt, and his wife, Mary Elizabeth Roth Walt, in 1892. This included the main house and the carriage house, which is marked on the right side of this picture. Later came the house next door at 309 Bent Road, which was built for HK's daughter, also named Mary Elizabeth, and her husband, Dr. Knifer, who himself was a very well-respected and pioneering medical professional, and he's credited with being a founder of Abington Memorial Hospital, specifically their OBGYN. So again, we have some really incredible people making their homes in this area. There's also a gardener's cottage at 7 Walt Lane, as well as 2 sets of twins on Greenwood Avenue that were designed by Haycock and Hockhessen, which HK commissioned to house several employees of his trust company. Across Walt Lane, we also have the original Wyncote Elementary School, which was commissioned by HK for his children, as well as those in the neighborhood, and was built on top of what was, at one point, their private tennis courts. So in order to understand the meaning of this park, it's really important to understand its inhabitants. So Bent Terrace was the primary family home of Henry Klein Walt and his wife, Mary Elizabeth Roth Walt. HK himself was born to a farming family with 8 other siblings in Schwenksville, Pennsylvania, and he was educated through the public school system. At the age of 14, he was apprenticed to learn the shoemaking trade. This article in Town and Country from 1903 states, in business, his first venture was a shoe store in Schwenksville in combination with shoemaking and repairing. It was no success, and he lost all of his money invested. He moved to Philadelphia in 1870, where he ultimately partnered with the well-known shoe firm of Bell, Walt and Company, where he prospered. In July of 1903, Walt and a group of business pioneers founded the Jenkintown Trust Company, where he served as president. You can see him sitting at his desk here. And the company itself was headquartered at the corner of Greenwood Avenue and York Road in what is currently Edelman's Coins and Stamps. 2 years after HK died in 1920, the trust company and the Jenkintown National Bank, located at West Avenue and York Road, consolidated. Now, although this area would not come to be known as Robinson Park for many years after these photos were taken, as you can imagine, the family loved spending time in their private gardens. While the Walts were not quite as prominent as their neighbors, they would frequently socialize and ride horses with the Wideners, Elkinses, and Dixon families. And they had some idiosyncrasies and quirks, several of which my family came to learn when we moved into the house and assumed stewardship of Bend Terrace. For example, they were Pennsylvania Dutch, and they were known to speak in the Pennsylvania Dutch dialect when they were out with their acquaintances and wanted to share private commentary with one another. While clearly wealthy, as you can tell, they were still a very parsimonious family, and they did not like to spend money wantonly. One of my favorite stories comes from when my family first moved into the Bender, and we discovered a number of interesting labels in the drawers, such as a place for bits of string too small to be used. Just in case they had a use someday, you could tie them all together. I don't even know. I really, truly, it was lost on me. Also left behind was this Asher's chocolate tin housing, as labeled, homeless keys. From clocks to, we have a front closet, room, drawer. We have all kinds of manner of keys that were abandoned, clocks that are no longer, in use, things like that. But anyway, here are some photos from the very earliest days of Robinson Park. First, on the left, you'll see it shortly after its construction. You'll see the formal rose garden, the gazing pool, the grotto, and the gazebo, as well as Calvary Presbyterian and Bend Terrace, which is right up here on the right. Additionally, the natural springs that run under the park were perfect for a freshwater wading pool, which was fed by a pump that still functions today. The next photo also shows the progression of the formal rose garden as it continued to develop with All Hallows in the background. Now, here are some of my favorite photos of Robinson Park. In its maturity, these were both taken from roughly the same vantage point, though about 40 years apart from one another. You'll see the gazing pool and the grotto in the background. And the photo on the left is from the 1930s, in which you'll see some of the landscaping that was attended to by a full-time gardening staff of 12. You think we can get that going? Think we can get that back, Bill? Yeah, Bob Dominic. I mean, that's a small but mighty crew of, you said 6? Yeah, this here was attended to by a full-time staff of 12, and it featured a carefully cultivated selection of native flora and fauna. And if you look carefully, you'll also see several Walt family members making good use of that freshwater swimming pool. There were also tennis courts as well as mini golf and croquet. And the photo on the right here is taken in spring of 1970. As an aside, in her senior years, Mrs. Robinson was known to navigate the property using a golf cart, and she was regularly observed brandishing her cane and chasing the seasonally resident geese, which she was not a fan of. As I mentioned earlier, what really distinguishes this property from others of the era is that it's a multi-generational family compound. The full 10-acre parcel remained in the family until 1980 when Marie Robinson passed away. Following the death of Mrs. Robinson, her heirs sold the property in its entirety, as well as the existing buildings, to the Wincote Church Home, which was most recently Phoebe Wincote on Fernbrook. The church home had some questionable intentions. Their plan was to raise the pre-existing houses and develop the property with independent living townhomes. Once constructed, the church home would then guarantee a built-in audience of residents who would be funneled to their care facility as they aged and were no longer able to live independently. Neighbors banded together and hired an attorney to represent their interests, and while zoning was ultimately approved for the properties and land to be developed, the social and political fallout was pretty significant and the project was abandoned. The properties were then subdivided and sold in 1996, including Bend Terrace, where my family has lived ever since. And the 4.4-acre plot down the hill from the Bender were acquired by Cheltenham Township through open space funds. Robinson Park was officially established. Now, Robinson Park has a history of inspiring activism. Following the salvation of the properties and the park's acquisition by the township in 96, the property again came under pressure shortly thereafter in 98, when the original Friends of Robinson Park was loosely organized to protest the removal of the historic grotto located above the existing stone grotto. The group was ultimately successful, and a replica of the gazebo was built adjacent to its original location. This is one of several reasons for which the gazebo is kind of our unofficial mascot. Robinson Park is also the home of the Roger Copeland Memorial Garden. Roger was our former neighbor, a community activist, and the nephew of renowned American composer Aaron Copland. His motto was "No grit, no pearl," and it's memorialized on a beautiful plaque near the base of the grotto. In 2024, neighbors became aware of federal and state grant applications submitted by the township to convert the historic park into a wetland and the gazing pool into a dry detention basin. Neighbors again took up the mantle of activism and formally established the Friends of Robinson Park as a 501c3 nonprofit. And with the support of our past and current commissioners, we've been able to build a really strong collaborative relationship with the staff and township consultants. And we've provided an alternate design that will maintain much of the historic character of the park while also supporting the township's stormwater management requirements. Most recently, we've been informed that the design phase of the project has been fully funded. However, a request to extend the grant application that would have funded further construction was denied. In the meantime, we await the next phase of designs to be delivered by the township's engineers, and we're very hopeful that the community's input will be meaningfully incorporated. And we have a really bright future ahead of us. While we anticipate that the park will continue to change and develop, the Friends are actively working to ensure its ongoing viability and enjoyment within our community. Robinson Park was formally recognized as a firefly habitat in 2025, and in January of this year, we were recognized as a bird-friendly habitat by the Liberty Bird Alliance and the PA Audubon Council. We're also working towards the installation of a pollinator garden in partnership with the Philadelphia Beekeepers Guild to populate beehives in the park, and we continue to actively collaborate with the Tacony-Tacony Frankford Watershed Project, who's helping us to eliminate the Phragmites in an environmentally conscious way. Additionally, we are thrilled to boast an energized and active volunteer base. We have hosted and will continue to host community potluck celebrations of each seasonal change, including spring cleanups, summer lantern floats, autumnal golden hours, and winter solstice celebrations with no barriers to participation. We also had a Mother's Day tree planting, as well as an algae cleanup of the gazing pool in anticipation of the reinstallation of our beautiful fountain. Further, this summer, 2 concerts will be hosted in Robinson. We are very excited to host our second Brews with a View event in August, which will have a jazz theme. The second is a bookend event, also a jazz concert, in partnership with the Elkins Estate and the Valley Forge Visitor and Convention Bureau. This will be in September. This spring and summer, we're planning for the installation of a woodland trail through our wooded grove, and we'll be fundraising for spring bulbs to plant in the fall of 26 to be enjoyed in the spring of 27. In closing, we invite you to please scan this QR code, join our mailing list, find us on Facebook or Instagram, and make a tax-deductible donation. Visit our website, view some additional educational materials, or just stop by and say hi. We're very spam conscious on our mailing list, and we will only send out periodic emails with information about upcoming events and how you can get involved. Again, come on out and see us. We look forward to seeing you there. Thanks, guys.
Thank you, Donna and Alex. Round of applause once again. I'm gonna ask Donna and Alex to come up on stage again, in case there are any lingering questions out there that we may be able to answer. If they're not, no big deal. Great. Okay. So, on behalf of Parks and Rec, we want to make sure each Friends group gets the commemorative book and coin, so they can keep it within the Friends group for all posterity, no matter who the board of directors for that Parks group is. So everybody, thanks so much for coming out. We do have this recorded on Zoom, and I think Alex is recording as well. So we'll get working on it on YouTube. And please spread the word of not just February 21st, Park History Part 2, when we connect to schools, but also everything going on as part of Cheltenham Celebrates America 250. Founders Day is in March, Sunday, March 8th at Elkins Estate. Tickets are available on Eventbrite, so please check it out. And then we get into April at Temple Judaism Museum with the Parkinson. I think, and there's a Black History Month event here next Thursday, this Thursday night, 8 o'clock in this hall, through this room commission. 7:30, sorry. Well, the meetings beforehand, so probably, no. All right, thanks everybody.